You're probably cheating on me, aren't you? That's why you've been so distant lately. That's why you barely touch me anymore. Jennifer's voice cut through the dinner table like a knife, her eyes locked on mine with that familiar mix of accusation and manipulation. My parents sat frozen, forks halfway to their mouths, staring at us both. The candlelight flickered across the white tablecloth, casting shadows that felt too heavy for what should have been a pleasant family dinner. My name is Brandon Coleman, and that moment, that exact moment, should have been my cue to walk away. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because 30 seconds later, Jennifer's face transformed from accusatory to radiant, tears welling up in her eyes as she pulled a small white stick from her purse. "I'm pregnant," she whispered, and the entire room exploded into celebration. My mother gasped, covering her mouth with both hands. My father stood up so fast his chair scraped against the hardwood floor. Jennifer was crying now, real tears streaming down her face as she reached for my hand across the table. Everyone was looking at me, waiting for my reaction, waiting for me to jump up and embrace her, to shout with joy, to be the proud father-to-be they expected. But I couldn't move. My mind had gone somewhere else entirely, 3 years back to a cold examination room in downtown Chicago. I was sitting on crinkly paper, signing consent forms while Dr. Patterson explained the vasectomy procedure in clinical detail. I remembered the sound of the pen scratching across the paper. I remembered the finality of that decision. I remembered everything. My hand started trembling in Jennifer's grip. She didn't notice, she was too busy accepting congratulations from my mother, who had rushed around the table to hug her. But my father noticed. His eyes met mine across the chaos and something flickered there. Concern maybe. Or recognition that something was very, very wrong. I forced my mouth into a smile. I stood up. I pulled Jennifer into my arms and held her while she sobbed happy tears into my shoulder, and the entire time, one thought echoed through my skull like a death knell. I can't be the father. The math doesn't work. The biology doesn't work. Nothing about this works. "Brandon, are you okay?" my mother asked, her hand on my shoulder. "You look pale, sweetheart." I nodded, swallowing the bile rising in my throat. "I'm fine, Mom. Just overwhelmed. It's a lot to take in." Jennifer pulled back from me, her mascara running, her smile so wide it looked painful. "We're going to be parents, baby. Can you believe it? After everything, it finally happened. After everything." The phrase hung in the air like poison. She meant after the miscarriage scare 2 years ago, except there had never been a miscarriage. There had been a lie, a manipulation, an attempt to trap me that I'd discovered too late. That was why I'd gotten the vasectomy. That was why I'd never told her. I kissed her forehead, tasting salt from her tears. My jaw clenched so hard I thought my teeth might crack. The camera in my mind, the one that records every important moment of your life, zoomed in on my face and I knew what it would show. A man whose entire world had just shattered while everyone around him celebrated. Please, before I continue, kindly like, share and subscribe for more interesting videos. I sat in my car outside David Chen's office for 20 minutes before I could force myself to go inside. The private investigator's building was in a strip mall between a nail salon and a tax preparation service, deliberately unremarkable, the kind of place you could visit without anyone asking questions. Rain hammered against my windshield, distorting the neon signs into abstract smears of color. My phone buzzed. "Jennifer, don't forget to pick up prenatal vitamins on your way home. Love you." I stared at those 3 words until they stopped meaning anything. David's office smelled like old coffee and leather. He was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with graying temples and the kind of steady gaze that made you feel like he'd already heard your story 1,000 times before. He slid a contract across his desk without preamble. "You sure about this?" he asked, his pen hovering over the signature line. "Once we start digging, you can't unknow what we find. Most men who sit in that chair, they're hoping I'll prove them wrong. They're hoping their wife really was at her sister's house, really was working late, really did lose her wedding ring at the gym. Are you hoping I prove you wrong, Brandon?" I thought about that question. Really thought about it. Did I want to be wrong? Did I want Jennifer to somehow be carrying my child despite medical impossibility? Did I want this nightmare to end with a reasonable explanation, an apology for doubting her, a return to whatever fragile peace we'd built together? "No," I said finally. "I'm not hoping you prove me wrong. I know I'm right. I need you to prove it so I'm not the one who looks crazy." Something shifted in David's expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. He signed the contract and pushed it toward me. As I scrawled my name across the bottom, he opened his desk drawer and pulled out a small black device, no bigger than a matchbox. "GPS tracker," he explained, setting it on the desk between us. Magnetic. Attaches under the car frame. I need you to plant this in her vehicle. We'll know everywhere she goes, how long she stays, who she meets. I picked it up. It was surprisingly heavy for something so small. The weight of it felt like the weight of the decision itself. Once I did this, there was no pretending I still trusted her. No pretending our marriage was salvageable. What if she finds it? I asked. She won't. But if she does, you tell her you were worried about the car being stolen. New baby on the way, wanted extra security. She'll buy it. David leaned back in his chair, studying me. Can I ask you something personal? I nodded. Why the vasectomy? You're what, 32? Successful career, stable marriage at the time. Most guys your age are trying to have kids, not prevent them. The memory came flooding back, uninvited but vivid. 2.5 years ago, Jennifer crying in our bathroom, holding a pregnancy test I later discovered she'd faked by buying it pre-used online. The weeks of her miscarriage, the grief she performed so convincingly I actually considered therapy. Then finding the Amazon receipt on our shared credit card, positive pregnancy test, great for pranks or announcements. She tried to trap me once before, I said quietly. Faked a pregnancy, faked a miscarriage. I found out the truth by accident. When I confronted her, she said she did it because I wasn't taking our future seriously enough, because she needed to know I was committed. We almost divorced then. I stayed because I'm an idiot who believes in second chances. But I got the vasectomy because I'm not stupid enough to give her a third. David wrote something in his notebook. And she doesn't know about the procedure? Nobody knows. Not even my parents. Good. Keep it that way. That's your ace in the hole. He closed the notebook and looked at me with something that might have been sympathy. I've been doing this job for 15 years, Brandon. I've seen a lot of marriages end in this office. But I've also been where you are, on the other side of the desk. My ex-wife had an affair. Tried to take everything in the divorce, including custody of my daughter. Made up abuse allegations, the whole 9 yards. I lost 3 years with my kid before the truth came out. His voice had gone rough around the edges, and I understood suddenly why he'd taken my case, why he'd agreed to meet me on a Saturday, why something in his expression had shifted when I'd explained my situation. I'll work this case for half my usual rate, David continued. Not because I feel sorry for you, but because I know what it's like to be the good guy everyone thinks is the villain. Let me help you make sure that doesn't happen. I left his office with the GPS tracker in my jacket pocket, its weight pulling at me like gravity, like fate, like the inevitable conclusion of a story I'd been too afraid to finish writing. That night, while Jennifer slept, I crawled under her SUV in our garage and attached the tracker to the undercarriage. My hands were shaking. My heart was hammering so hard I thought she might hear it through 2 floors of our house. When I climbed back into bed beside her, she stirred and reached for me in her sleep, her hand finding mine in the darkness. Her engagement ring pressed cold against my palm. I didn't sleep at all that night. David called me exactly 1 week later. His voice on the phone was careful, neutral, the tone of a doctor about to deliver a terminal diagnosis. We need to meet. Not over the phone. Can you get away for an hour? I told Jennifer I had a dentist appointment. She barely looked up from her phone, one hand resting on her still flat stomach in that performative way pregnant women do, even when there's nothing to show yet. Bring back ice cream, she said. The baby wants chocolate chip cookie dough. The baby. Not our baby. Just the baby, like it existed independent of either of us. I met David at the same coffee shop where we'd first discussed the case, an anonymous chain restaurant off the highway where nobody we knew would see us. He was already in a back booth when I arrived, a manila envelope sitting on the table between his coffee cup and a half-eaten blueberry muffin. Before I show you this, he said as I sat down, I need to ask if you're ready, because once you see what's in here, there's no going back to denial. There's no more hoping I'm wrong or that there's an innocent explanation. This is the cliff, Brandon. Last chance to walk away. My hands were already reaching for the envelope. Show me. He slid it across the table. The first photograph showed Jennifer standing outside the Lakeside Hotel downtown, one of those boutique places with hourly rates and discretion built into the business model. She was looking over her shoulder, checking to see if anyone was watching. The timestamp read 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, the same Tuesday she told me she was having lunch with her college roommate. The second photograph showed her with a man. He was kissing her neck while she laughed, her head thrown back, her hand tangled in his hair. They were standing beside a black Audi in the hotel parking garage, and even in the grainy surveillance photo, I could see the intimacy between them, the familiarity, the comfort of two people who'd done this many times before. Who is he? I asked, my voice sounding distant and strange to my own ears. John Carter. Age 34. Bartender at McFadden's on Rush Street. Works nights mostly, which explains the afternoon meetings. David pulled out his phone and showed me John's Facebook profile. But here's where it gets interesting. He's not just some random guy. Look at his relationship history. I scrolled through John's profile. Photos going back years. And there, from 6 years ago, dozens of couple photos. John and Jennifer. John and Jennifer at a beach. John and Jennifer at someone's wedding. John and Jennifer kissing under Christmas lights. Her college boyfriend, I said. Her college boyfriend, David confirmed. They dated for 4 years. Broke up 6 months before she met you. According to mutual friends I talked to, don't worry, I was discreet, he cheated on her multiple times. She finally left him. But when they reconnected at a wedding about 2 years ago, old feelings came back. 2 years ago. Right around the time she'd faked the pregnancy. Right around the time our marriage had started falling apart in ways I couldn't articulate but could definitely feel. David pulled out more papers from his briefcase. It gets worse. These are screenshots from her phone. I have a contact who can pull deleted messages for a fee. I took the liberty because I had a feeling we'd need everything we could get. The text messages were dated over the past 4 months. Jennifer, he has no idea. He's so wrapped up in work he barely notices I exist anymore. John, when are you going to leave him? Jennifer, after the baby comes. His family has money. I'll get child support, probably alimony with a good lawyer. He'll look like the deadbeat dad who abandoned his pregnant wife. John, what if he fights it? Jennifer, he won't. Brandon's too nice. Too guilty. Too concerned with what people think. He'll pay whatever I ask to make me go away quietly. And then we can finally be together for real. John, I can't wait to raise our kid without that idiot in the picture. Jennifer, our son. I know it's a boy. I can feel it. We're going to have the life we should have had 6 years ago. I read the messages 3 times. Then a 4th. The words didn't change. The meaning didn't soften. This wasn't a mistake or a moment of weakness or a cry for help in a struggling marriage. This was calculated. Premeditated. A con with a 9-month timeline and my name on the paternity documents. There's one more thing, David said quietly. He pulled out a final document, this one official looking with a laboratory header. That coffee cup she left at Starbucks last Thursday? The one I told you I grabbed for fingerprint analysis. I nodded, not trusting my voice. I sent it to a lab that does discrete DNA testing. They extracted her DNA from the saliva on the lid. Then I had a contact at the hospital pull John's DNA from a blood donation he made last year. Don't ask me how, but it's legal enough that it'll hold up. I ran a preliminary paternity test. He slid the paper across the table. The words blurred in my vision, but the numbers were clear enough. Probability of paternity, 99.97%, alleged father, John Michael Carter. My hands started shaking. Not with sadness or grief, but with something colder and infinitely more dangerous. Rage. Pure, crystalline rage that sharpened every thought in my head into a weapon. I want everything, I heard myself say. Every text message. Every photograph. Every hotel receipt. Every lie. I want documentation of every single moment of this affair. And I want it ready to present in a format that can't be disputed or explained away. David studied me carefully. What are you planning, Brandon? I looked up from the photographs, from the text messages, from the DNA results that proved my wife's child belonged to her ex-boyfriend while she let me play proud father-to-be in front of my family. She wants a show? I said. She wants to play happy couple while planning to destroy me? Fine. I'll play along. But when this ends, everyone's going to know exactly who the villain really is. David smiled, not with joy, but with the grim satisfaction of a man who'd been waiting for someone to fight back. Now you're thinking like a winner. Let's burn her world down. Jennifer wanted the gender reveal party to be massive. She'd been planning it for weeks, her laptop perpetually open to Pinterest boards filled with pink and blue decorations, dessert tables, balloon arches that cost more than my first car. She'd invited over 100 people. Friends, family, co-workers, her entire Instagram following of 50,000 people who'd been tracking her pregnancy journey with breathless fascination. This is going to be perfect, she said one night, scrolling through her phone while I pretended to read beside her in bed. Sarah confirmed she'll film everything professionally. The lighting company is setting up at noon. And I got 3 different sponsors to send gift baskets for the photos. Baby Bliss Co. is even paying me $2,000 just to tag them in posts. She was building an empire on a lie. A whole influencer career based on a pregnancy that would destroy me. Sounds like it'll be memorable, I said, and she missed the edge in my voice entirely. What Jennifer didn't know was that I'd been planning too. David and I had spent the past 3 weeks coordinating every detail of my counter-reveal. I'd rented a professional projector and screen, disguised as equipment for a surprise video montage I claimed I was making for Jennifer. I'd hired my own tech guy, David's nephew actually, to set up a laptop with all the evidence loaded and ready to display at the touch of a button. I'd even met with my lawyer, Patricia Hoffman, who'd reviewed our prenuptial agreement with the intensity of a surgeon examining an X-ray. If you can prove adultery, she gets nothing, Patricia had said, tapping the clause with one manicured fingernail. No alimony, no property settlement, nothing. The prenup you both signed is ironclad on this point. Your only risk is if she claims you're lying or if the evidence isn't sufficient. The evidence is sufficient, I'd assured her. The night before the party, Jennifer was a tornado of excitement. She'd gotten her hair done, her nails done, bought a new dress that accentuated her barely there baby bump. She kept taking selfies, posting them with captions like, "Can't wait to share our big news tomorrow," and "Best day ever is coming." She cuddled up to me on the couch, resting her head on my shoulder. "Thank you for being so supportive through all of this. I know I haven't been the easiest wife lately. The hormones are crazy. But I love you, Brandon. You're going to be such an amazing father." I kissed the top of her head, breathing in her lavender shampoo, memorizing this moment, not because it was tender, but because it was the last time she'd ever touched me without knowing what I knew. "I love you too," I lied, and my eyes in the reflection of the dark TV screen were absolutely cold. The backyard looked like a Pinterest explosion. Pink and blue balloons clustered in huge arches over the patio. A dessert table groaned under the weight of cupcakes, cookies, and a 3-tier cake with "boy or girl" written in elegant frosting. String lights crisscrossed overhead even though it was only 3 in the afternoon, ready for the golden hour photos Jennifer had planned down to the minute. Guests arrived in waves. My parents came first, my mother immediately fussing over Jennifer's dress and asking about her cravings. Jennifer's parents flew in from Arizona, her father already tearing up at the thought of becoming a grandfather. Friends I hadn't seen in years showed up, drawn by the spectacle and the open bar I'd insisted on paying for, my treat, I told Jennifer, for our special day. And then John arrived. He came in through the side gate, introduced by Jennifer as an old college friend who happened to be in town. He wore a casual button-down and jeans, his smile easy and confident as he shook hands with my father, as he accepted a beer from my cousin, as he scanned the crowd with the assurance of a man who thought he'd already won. Our eyes met across the yard. He was standing by the pool, beer in hand, talking to one of Jennifer's friends. For just a second, his expression flickered. Recognition, maybe nervousness, definitely curiosity about whether I knew. Then he smirked. Actually smirked at me as if to say, "Your wife, my baby, and you're throwing us a party." I smiled back and raised my glass in a mock toast. My best friend Mike appeared at my elbow. "You good, man? You seem off. Distracted." "I'm better than I've ever been," I said, taking a sip of my bourbon. "Just wait. This party is going to be unforgettable." Jennifer was in her element, moving through the crowd like a celebrity, touching her stomach whenever anyone asked about the baby, posing for photos with her hand on her hip and her dress catching the light just right. Her photographer friend Sarah followed her everywhere, camera clicking constantly. The performance was flawless. She'd practiced this role, loving wife, glowing mother-to-be, woman who'd finally gotten everything she wanted. And everyone believed it. Why wouldn't they? Jennifer had always been a good actress. At 4 o'clock, she clinked a glass and called everyone to gather around the cake for the big reveal. The crowd pressed in, phones out, excited murmurs rippling through the assembled guests. But before we could cut the cake, before the pink or blue filling could spill out and seal the lie into everyone's memory, Jennifer's expression changed. She reached into her purse and pulled out a crumpled receipt, her hands shaking, tears already forming. This wasn't part of my plan. This was hers. "I need to say something before we do this," Jennifer announced, her voice cracking with emotion. The crowd quieted immediately, concern rippling through the assembled guests. She held up the receipt like evidence at a trial, her hand trembling. "I found this in Brandon's car 3 days ago. A receipt for a $3,000 diamond bracelet from Tiffany & Company." Gasps erupted. Heads swiveled toward me. My mother's face went pale. "But I never received a bracelet," Jennifer continued, tears streaming down her face now, mascara running in perfect tragic streaks. So I have to ask, Brandon, in front of everyone here, in front of our families, in front of our baby, who did you buy that bracelet for? Who have you been seeing? The crowd turned into a jury. Whispers erupted like wildfire. I could see the judgment forming in real time, the sympathetic looks directed at my pregnant wife, the suspicious glares aimed at me. Jennifer's friends moved closer to her, forming a protective circle. Even my father looked uncertain, his expression asking the question he couldn't voice. Did you cheat on your pregnant wife? Jennifer's performance was masterful. She'd planned this ambush perfectly, waited until we had maximum witnesses, chose the moment when I'd look most guilty. If I got angry, I'd look defensive. If I denied it, I'd look like a liar. She'd boxed me into a corner where any reaction would condemn me. But she'd made one critical miscalculation. She'd assumed I had something to hide. I stood slowly, deliberately, my movements calm. I pulled my phone from my pocket and tapped the screen with careful precision. Behind me, hidden among the party decorations, the projector hummed to life. The white screen I'd claimed was for a surprise video montage flickered on. You want to know who I bought the bracelet for, Jennifer? I said, my voice carrying across the suddenly silent crowd. You want to put me on trial in front of everyone we know? Fine. Let me show you. I pressed play. The first image that appeared on the screen was a medical document, blown up large enough for everyone to read clearly. The header read, Advanced Urology Associates of Chicago. The patient name, Brandon Michael Coleman. The procedure, vasectomy. The date, 3 years ago. And in bold letters at the bottom, post-procedure analysis confirms 0 sperm count. Patient is sterile. The crowd went from silent to shocked in the space of a heartbeat. I watched Jennifer's face drain of all color. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. I had a vasectomy 3 years ago, Jennifer, I said, my voice steady and cold as winter. I'm sterile. Medically incapable of having children. So tell everyone here, how exactly am I the father of your baby? Someone in the crowd gasped. Jennifer tried to speak, stumbled over her words. That's not, you're lying, that document is fake. I clicked to the next slide. Photographs filled the screen. Jennifer and John outside the Lakeside Hotel. Jennifer and John kissing in a parking garage. Jennifer and John at a restaurant, their hands intertwined across the table. Each image was time-stamped, dated, GPS tagged with locations she'd claimed she was somewhere else. At her mother's house, at yoga class, shopping with friends. The crowd wasn't just silent anymore. It was stunned into absolute stillness, the kind of quiet that comes before an explosion. I could see Jennifer's friends backing away from her, could see my mother's hand covering her mouth, could see John trying to edge toward the gate. Don't leave yet, John, I called out, and every head swiveled to find him. He froze like a deer in headlights. Everyone meet John Carter. Jennifer's college boyfriend. The actual father of her baby. Jennifer was crying now, but not the delicate tears she'd performed earlier. These were ugly, desperate sobs. Brandon, please, we can talk about this, we can work this out. Work it out. I clicked to the next slide. Text messages filled the screen, blown up so large that even the people in the back could read them clearly. Jennifer, he has no idea. Once the baby's here, we'll get the divorce and the money. John, I can't wait to raise our kid without that idiot in the picture. Jennifer, Brandon's too nice. Too guilty. He'll pay whatever I ask to make me go away quietly. Someone in the crowd shouted, oh my God. Someone else said, how could you? Jennifer's mother was crying. My father looked like he wanted to murder someone. But I wasn't finished. There's more, I said, advancing to the next slide. More text messages appeared, these ones more recent. Jennifer, the gender reveal party is going to be perfect. I've got sponsors lined up, 50,000 followers watching. This is my big break. John, and then we're free? Jennifer, and then we're free. With Brandon's money and my influencer career, we'll never have to work real jobs again. The crowd erupted. People were shouting now, angry voices overlapping. Someone called Jennifer a word I won't repeat. John was definitely trying to leave, but 2 of my cousins had positioned themselves at the gate, arms crossed. I held up my hand and the crowd quieted, hungry for the final blow they could sense coming. One last thing, I said, clicking to the final slide. A DNA report appeared on screen, official laboratory letterhead and everything, probability of paternity, 99.97%, alleged father, John Michael Carter. Jennifer collapsed into a chair, her face in her hands, her whole body shaking with sobs that no longer had an audience sympathetic to them. John stood frozen by the pool, his face ashen, trapped by the crowd and his own guilt. My mother walked slowly across the patio. The crowd parted for her like the Red Sea. She stopped in front of Jennifer and just looked at her for a long moment, her expression a mixture of disgust and pity. "You need to leave," my mother said quietly. "Right now. Get out of my son's house." Jennifer looked up at me one last time, her makeup ruined, her dress wrinkled, her carefully constructed image shattered into 1,000 irreparable pieces. "Brandon, please," she whispered. "Can we at least talk privately?" "No," I said simply. "Everything you need to know you already know. You played a game and you lost. Now leave." But the crowd wasn't ready to let her go quietly. People were shouting questions, demanding explanations. Jennifer's best friend Vanessa stepped forward, her face twisted with betrayal. "I defended you. When people said you were acting strange, I told them you were just hormonal. How could you do this?" John finally found his voice. "This is insane. You can't just..." "Can't just what?" My cousin Derek interrupted, stepping into John's space. "Can't just expose you for being a home-wrecking deadbeat? Can't just show everyone what you really are? Get the hell out before we throw you out." Jennifer tried one more time. She turned to her own parents, her hands outstretched. "Mom, Dad, please, you have to understand." Her father turned his back on her. Actually turned his back and walked away. Her mother followed, weeping into her hands. The party dissolved into chaos. People were leaving in groups, their voices carrying back across the lawn. "Did you see his face? I can't believe she thought she'd get away with it. That poor man." The sympathy that had been directed at Jennifer 15 minutes ago had completely reversed. Now she was the villain in everyone's story, and I was the victim who'd orchestrated the most spectacular revenge any of them had ever witnessed. Sarah, the photographer, was still filming. I noticed her camera trained on Jennifer's departure, capturing every moment of her humiliation for posterity. Jennifer noticed too. "Turn that off," she screamed, lunging for the camera. "Turn it off right now." Sarah backed away, protecting her equipment. "This is newsworthy," she said coldly. "This is the real story. Not the fairy tale you were trying to sell." Jennifer gathered what remained of her dignity, not much, and walked toward the house. She had to pass me to get there. As she did, she stopped, looked up at me with eyes full of hatred and humiliation. "I hope you're happy," she spat. "I'm not happy," I replied honestly. "But I'm free. And that's better." She went inside to pack. The party didn't resume, but it didn't need to. Everyone had gotten a show far more memorable than any gender reveal. My friends stayed, helping clean up, offering quiet words of support. My mother hugged me for a long time, crying into my shoulder, apologizing for not seeing the truth sooner. "Who was the bracelet really for?" she asked. I smiled for the first time that day. "You, Mom. For getting through chemo without telling anyone because you didn't want to worry us. I know you thought you were protecting me, but I found the medical bills. The bracelet was supposed to be a surprise for after your last treatment." She started crying harder and this time pulled up her sleeve to show me her wrist. She was wearing the bracelet. She'd been wearing it the whole time. "I wanted Jennifer to see it," she said. "I wanted her to know what she'd accused you of. But you didn't need my help, did you?" "No," I agreed. "I really didn't." 1 week later, I sat across from Patricia Hoffman in her downtown office while she slid divorce papers across her mahogany desk. The Chicago skyline stretched behind her through floor-to-ceiling windows, the city looking small and distant from the 42nd floor. "Due to the prenuptial agreement you both signed and the documented proof of adultery, Jennifer Coleman née Winters is entitled to nothing," Patricia said, her tone professionally satisfied. "No alimony, no property settlement, no shared assets. The house remains yours, all bank accounts remain yours, her name will be removed from everything. She has 30 days to vacate the premises, but given that she moved out last week, that's a formality." "What about the baby?" I asked. "Not your problem. Legally, emotionally, or financially. John Carter is the biological father, and if Jennifer wants child support, she'll have to pursue him. Given his employment history and existing child support obligations to 2 other children, good luck to her." I signed the papers. My signature was steady. I felt nothing, not satisfaction, not sadness, not relief. Just a vast emptiness where my marriage used to be. "There's one more thing," Patricia said, pulling out her tablet. "I thought you should know that Jennifer's Instagram has been deleted. Her influencer career is over. The sponsors dropped her immediately when the video of your party went viral. Yes, it went viral, over 2 million views on TikTok alone. People are calling it the gender reveal revenge of the year." She turned the tablet toward me. The video showed everything: Jennifer's accusation, my reveal, the text messages, the DNA results, her breakdown. The comments were brutal. Thousands of people dissecting her character, praising my composure, demanding updates on what happened next. "You're famous," Patricia said. "Not that I recommend reading the comments. But you should know that public opinion is overwhelmingly on your side." I left her office and drove to my parents' house, where I'd been staying since the party. My mother had made dinner, pot roast, my favorite, the kind of comfort food that tastes like childhood and safety. Over dinner, my father asked the question I'd been expecting. "What are you going to do now?" I thought about it. My marriage was over. My name was cleared. Jennifer was out of my life forever. The baby that wasn't mine would be born in a few months to a mother who'd destroyed her entire life for a fantasy and a father who'd already abandoned her. I should feel victorious. Instead, I felt tired. "I think I'm going to sell the house," I said. "Too many memories and none of them good anymore." "Then maybe travel. I've always wanted to see Europe. Maybe Italy. Somewhere far away from here where nobody knows this story." My mother reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "That sounds perfect." 6 months later, I stood in a small bookstore in Florence, Italy, surrounded by the smell of old paper and espresso from the cafe in the corner. Rain pattered against the windows, turning the cobblestone street outside into a watercolor painting. I'd been traveling for 3 months, Paris, Barcelona, Rome, and now Florence, and for the first time since the party I felt like I could breathe. "Excuse me," a voice said in accented English. "You've been staring at that book for 10 minutes? Is it that good or are you just avoiding the rain?" I looked up. She was maybe 30, with dark hair pulled into a messy bun, wearing a bookstore apron and a smile that didn't look rehearsed or calculated. Just genuine. "I'm avoiding making a decision," I admitted, holding up the book. "It's about forgiveness. I'm trying to figure out if I believe in it." "Ah," she said, taking the book from me and examining the cover. "Heavy reading for a vacation. I'm Emma, by the way. I own this place. And you are?" "Brandon." "Just Brandon." "Well, just Brandon, my recommendation is that you buy the book, read it over a cappuccino in the corner, and decide for yourself. First coffee is on the house for customers who look like they're carrying the weight of the world." I laughed, actually laughed, for the first time in what felt like years. I bought the book. I drank the cappuccino. And when I finished both, Emma was closing up the shop, but she stopped to ask if I'd found my answer. "Not yet," I said. "But I think I'm getting closer." "Come back tomorrow," she suggested. "I have other books. And better coffee recommendations." I came back the next day. And the day after that. Emma and I talked about books, about Italy, about life. On the 4th day, over espresso and biscotti, she asked the question I'd been waiting for. "So what brought you to Florence? Running from something or running to something?" I thought about lying. But Emma had a way of looking at you that made lying feel impossible and unnecessary. "Running from the worst thing that ever happened to me," I said honestly. "My wife cheated on me. Got pregnant by her ex-boyfriend. Tried to trap me into raising another man's child and then take me for everything I had in the divorce." Emma didn't gasp or offer immediate sympathy. She just nodded slowly. "And you found out?" "I found out. And I exposed her in front of everyone we knew at what was supposed to be our baby's gender reveal party." "Brutal," Emma said, but there was no judgment in her voice. "Did it help? The revenge?" "Honestly, I don't know yet. It felt necessary at the time. Like the only way to reclaim my dignity. But now, 6 months later, sitting here with you, it feels like something that happened to a different person." Emma was quiet for a moment, stirring her espresso. "Then, my husband died 3 years ago. Car accident. We'd been married for 5 years and then one day he was just gone. No warning, no goodbye, no chance to say the things you should say to someone you love." "I'm sorry," I said. "Thank you. The point is, I spent 2 years angry at the universe for taking him. Angry at him for driving that day, for not taking a different route, for 1,000 tiny decisions that led to that moment. And the anger didn't bring him back. It just made me smaller. So I moved here, opened this bookstore, and decided to start over. Not to forget him, but to build something new alongside the memory." She looked at me, then really looked at me. "That's what you're doing, isn't it? Not forgetting but building something new." "Trying to," I admitted. "Well," Emma said, standing up and gathering our cups. "You're welcome to keep trying here. The bookstore could use a regular who actually reads instead of just taking Instagram photos. And I could use the company." That night, I walked back to my tiny rented apartment along the Arno River, watching the sunset paint the water gold and pink, and for the first time since Jennifer's pregnancy announcement, I felt something other than anger or emptiness. I felt possibility. I pulled out my phone and updated my Instagram, a platform I'd barely used since the video went viral, since my mentions had exploded with strangers dissecting my life. I posted a photo of the Florence skyline at sunset. The caption, "Sometimes the end of one chapter is the beginning of the best one." I didn't tag my location. I didn't explain. I just let it exist as proof that I was still here, still moving forward, still alive. 8,000 miles away in Chicago, Jennifer sat in her childhood bedroom in her parents' basement, 8 months pregnant and scrolling obsessively through Brandon's Instagram. She'd been doing this every day since he'd blocked her number, blocked her on Facebook, changed his email. Instagram was the only window she had left into his life, and she stared through it with the desperation of someone watching their own alternative future play out without them. The photo of the Florence sunset had been posted 2 hours ago. Already it had 3,000 likes and hundreds of comments. Mostly from women, Jennifer noted with a spike of jealous rage. Living your best life. You deserve happiness. Inspiring. She clicked through to his profile. Over the past 6 months, Brandon had documented his entire European adventure. Paris, Barcelona, Rome. Now Florence. He looked different in the photos. Lighter somehow, his smile reaching his eyes in a way it never had in the last years of their marriage. He looked free. Jennifer looked down at her swollen belly. At the stretch marks mapping her skin. At the cheap maternity clothes from Target because she couldn't afford anything better. Her influencer career had imploded spectacularly. All 50,000 followers disappeared within a week of the party video going viral. The sponsors had demanded their money back. Her friends had ghosted her. Even Vanessa, her supposed best friend, had posted a video titled, "Why I'm No Longer Friends with Jennifer," that got 100,000 views. And John? John had blocked her number 2 days after the party. She tracked him down at his apartment and he'd literally slammed the door in her face while yelling, "I didn't sign up to be a dad. Figure it out yourself." She'd moved back in with her parents because she had nowhere else to go. Her mother barely spoke to her. Her father avoided looking at her altogether. They'd made it clear she could stay until the baby was born, but then she needed to find her own place, get her own job, build her own life. They were done supporting her choices. Jennifer clicked back to Brandon's photo, zooming in on the background. Was that a woman's reflection in the window? She couldn't tell. Her heart hammered. She opened a fake Instagram account, her 7th one since he'd blocked all the others, and tried to follow him. Blocked within seconds. He must have her IP address flagged or something. He'd thought of everything. She tried his old email address, the one he'd used for years, bcoleman.chicago@gmail.com. The message bounced back immediately. Email address no longer exists. She tried LinkedIn. His profile was gone. She tried calling his office. Mr. Coleman no longer works here. He resigned 6 months ago. He'd erased her. Not just from his life but from any possible way to reach him. He'd rebuilt everything without leaving a single thread for her to grab onto. Her mother knocked on the bedroom door. "Jennifer, the baby's moving a lot. We should probably head to the hospital. Just to be safe." Jennifer stared at Brandon's photo one more time. At the life she could have had if she'd just been faithful, just been honest, just been a better person. The life she'd thrown away for John, for money, for an influencer career that never materialized. She'd gambled everything on a lie and lost it all. "Jennifer," her mother called again. "The contractions are getting closer. We need to go now." She locked her phone, leaving Brandon's smiling face frozen on her screen, and hauled herself out of bed. Another contraction hit and she gripped the door frame, breathing through it. This was her life now. Single motherhood with no support, no money, no career, no future except the one she'd have to claw together from the wreckage of her own choices. And Brandon? Brandon was in Florence, watching sunsets, probably falling in love, definitely living the life she'd always wanted. She started crying as another contraction hit, but she couldn't tell if it was from the pain or from the regret. 3 months later, Emma and I walked hand in hand through a Tuscan vineyard, golden afternoon light spilling across endless rows of grapevines. She'd closed the bookstore for the day so we could visit her friend's winery in the countryside, and now we stood on a hilltop overlooking a valley that looked like something from a Renaissance painting. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, a notification that someone had tried to message me on Instagram from a new account. I recognized the profile photo immediately, even though it was partially cropped. Jennifer, still trying to reach me after all this time. I showed Emma the screen. "She's persistent, I'll give her that. Are you going to respond?" Emma asked without judgment in her voice. Just curiosity. I thought about it. Really thought about it. Jennifer had tried everything. Fake accounts, emails to old addresses, calls to my old office. She'd probably seen my posts, seen Emma in the background of a few photos, realized I'd moved on in every possible way. Part of me wondered what she'd say if I gave her the chance. Would she apologize? Beg for forgiveness? Try to explain? But a larger part of me, the part that had spent 6 months healing, rebuilding, learning to trust again, knew that nothing she could say would change anything. The Brandon she'd betrayed no longer existed. That version of me had died at a gender reveal party in Chicago, surrounded by pink and blue balloons and the smoking wreckage of his marriage. I deleted the message request without opening it and blocked the account. No, I told Emma. Some chapters need to stay closed. Emma smiled and squeezed my hand. Good answer. We walked further into the vineyard, and I found myself thinking about the Brandon from 9 months ago, the one who'd sat in a PI's office with shaking hands, who'd planted a GPS tracker on his wife's car, who'd orchestrated an elaborate public revenge. That Brandon had been drowning in betrayal and rage, clinging to control because it was the only thing keeping him from falling apart. This Brandon, the one standing in an Italian vineyard with a woman who understood loss and healing, he wasn't drowning anymore. He'd learned to swim. My phone buzzed again. Another message attempt from Jennifer, from yet another fake account. This time I didn't even look at it before blocking. She's not going to stop, is she? Emma observed. Probably not, I agreed. But that's not my problem anymore. She made her choices. Now she lives with them. Emma leaned her head on my shoulder as we watched the sun begin its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Do you ever regret it? The way you exposed her? Some people would say it was cruel. I considered the question honestly. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that my marriage ended that way. But the exposure itself? No. She was planning to destroy me, my reputation, my finances, my relationship with my family. She was going to let me believe a child was mine, raise it for years, then pull the rug out and take everything. What I did was self-defense. Public, dramatic self-defense, but self-defense nonetheless. And now I'm here. With you. Building something real. I wouldn't be here if I'd handled it differently. If I'd confronted her privately, she would have manipulated the narrative, played the victim, made me the villain. I needed the truth to be undeniable. And it was. Emma pulled back to look at me, her dark eyes serious. You know what I think? I think you're not running from what happened anymore. You're running towards something better. And that's how you know you're ready to move on. She was right. For months I'd been traveling to escape Chicago, to escape the memory of Jennifer, to escape the man I'd been in that marriage. But somewhere along the way, maybe in a bookstore in Florence, maybe over cappuccinos and conversations about forgiveness, I'd stopped running away and started running toward something. Toward possibility. Toward happiness. Toward Emma. My phone buzzed a third time. This time I turned it off completely and put it in my pocket. No more interruptions, I said. Just us in the vineyard and whatever comes next. Whatever comes next, Emma echoed, and when she kissed me, I tasted wine and sunshine and the future I'd thought I'd lost forever. That night, back in Florence, I stood on my apartment balcony and thought about Jennifer one final time. I hope she was okay. I hope she figured out how to be a good mother. I hope she learned from her mistakes. But I didn't hope we'd speak again. I didn't hope she'd find a way to reach me. I didn't hope for closure or reconciliation. I hoped for exactly what I had. Distance, peace, and a new beginning that didn't include her in any capacity. Some people think revenge is about destruction. But for me it was about reclaiming my truth. Jennifer wanted my money, my name, my life, but she never had my heart. And now she had nothing while I had everything that actually mattered. 9 months ago she announced a pregnancy that wasn't mine. She tried to trap me, humiliate me, and take everything I'd built. Instead, I used that moment to announce who the baby's father really was. And in doing so, I set myself free. Jennifer was somewhere in Chicago, raising a child alone, working 2 jobs, living with her parents, scrolling through my Instagram hoping for a glimpse into a life she'd lost. And I was in Florence, watching stars appear over ancient rooftops, planning a future with a woman who understood that love was supposed to heal you, not destroy you. The lesson? Betrayal has a price. And some debts can never be repaid. I went to bed that night and slept better than I had in years.